Hanoi, North Vietnam. September 1969. Vice Admiral James Stockdale sat in his cell, holding a wooden stool above his head. In 30 seconds, he would bring it crashing down on his own leg. Hard enough to break it. Hard enough to make himself useless. The North Vietnamese wanted him on television. They wanted propaganda. They wanted him to denounce his country, to betray his men. And James Stockdale knew exactly how to stop them. He would make himself unwatchable. What happened in the next 7 seconds would define not just his survival, but the survival of 400 American prisoners depending on him to lead. And the philosophy that gave him the strength to do it had been preparing him for this exact moment for years. This is the story of how an ancient Greek slave's philosophy saved an American admiral. And how it can save you from whatever prison you're trapped in right now. Before James Stockdale became the most tortured American prisoner of the Vietnam War, he was something unusual in the military, a philosopher. Born in 1923 in Abingdon, Illinois, Stockdale graduated from the U.S. Naval Academy in 1947. He became a test pilot, a fighter squadron commander, the kind of man who flew over 100 combat missions over North Vietnam. But in 1962, while stationed at Stanford University as a military fellow, something happened that would change everything. His philosophy professor handed him a small book. Ancient, but practical. Written not by an emperor or a general, but by a former slave. The Enchiridion. The Handbook of Epictetus. Stockdale was skeptical. He was a fighter pilot. He had a squadron to command, missions to fly, a war to fight. What could a book written 2,000 years ago by a Greek slave possibly teach him? He opened it anyway. The first line hit him like a punch to the chest: some things are within our control, and some things are not. It is only after you have faced up to this fundamental rule and learned to distinguish between what you can and cannot control that inner tranquility and outer effectiveness become possible. Stockdale read all night. By morning, he was a different man. He did not know it yet, but he had just found the weapon that would keep him alive through 8 years of hell. 3 years later, on September 9, 1965, his A-4 Skyhawk was hit by anti-aircraft fire over North Vietnam. As he ejected from the burning cockpit, tumbling through the sky at 500 miles per hour, one thought crossed his mind: I am leaving the world of technology and entering the world of Epictetus. The Hoa Lo prison. The North Vietnamese called it the Garden. American prisoners had a different name, the Hanoi Hilton. Stockdale landed in a world designed to break human beings. Solitary confinement. Torture. Starvation. The rope treatment, being bound so tightly that your shoulders dislocated, your circulation stopped, your mind screamed for mercy. He endured it 15 times. 4 years in solitary confinement. 2 years in leg irons. Beaten. Starved. Deprived of medical care while his broken leg healed crooked, leaving him with a permanent limp that would pain him for the rest of his life. And here is the thing that no one talks about: Stockdale was not just another prisoner. He was the highest-ranking naval officer captured in Vietnam. Which meant he had a target on his back. And it meant 400 American prisoners were looking to him for leadership, for hope, for a reason to keep living. The North Vietnamese knew this too. They wanted to use him. Break him. Put him on television to say America was wrong, the war was immoral, the prisoners were being treated well. In early 1969, they told him, "You will make a statement tomorrow. You will be filmed. You have no choice." Stockdale sat in his cell and understood something that most people never learn: the difference between what you can control and what you cannot. He could not control being captured. He could not control being tortured. He could not control whether the North Vietnamese wanted to use him for propaganda. But he could control one thing: his response. And that was everything. That night, he took a rusty razor and cut his own scalp into grotesque patterns. He beat his own face with the wooden stool until it swelled beyond recognition. And when that was not enough, when he knew they might still force him to speak, he prepared to do something unthinkable. He would rather die than betray his men. Stoicism had taught him, death is not the worst thing that can happen. Dishonor is. The North Vietnamese cancelled the broadcast. They had nothing they could use. Epictetus was born around 50 AD into slavery in the Roman Empire. His master broke his leg as a demonstration of power. Epictetus looked at him and said calmly, "You are going to break it." The master broke it. Epictetus said, "Did I not tell you it would break?" This was not performance. This was philosophy in its most literal form, the complete separation of what happens to your body from what happens to your mind. Your body can be owned. Your mind cannot. Your circumstances can be controlled by others. Your response cannot be taken from you. This is the core of Stoicism, and it is the core of what kept Stockdale alive in conditions designed to destroy him. Stoicism was not born in a comfortable lecture hall. It was born in the marketplace of Athens, developed in the slave quarters of Rome, and refined in the campaigns of emperors who understood that power without inner discipline was no power at all. Zeno of Citium founded it around 300 BC after losing everything he owned in a shipwreck and finding, in his destitution, a copy of Socrates' teachings in a bookshop. Seneca refined it in the court of Nero, navigating a world where the wrong word could end a life. Marcus Aurelius practiced it from the throne of the most powerful empire in the world, writing to himself at night that the obstacle is the way, that the thing trying to stop you is, when met with the right mind, the very thing that will forge you. What all of them shared was the same foundational insight that Stockdale found in that Stanford classroom: the only truly unassailable territory in a human life is the mind that chooses how to respond to what happens to it. What Stockdale built inside that prison was one of the most remarkable leadership structures in military history. With no paper, no communication devices, no way to meet in person, he organized 400 men across multiple prison buildings into a coherent, disciplined resistance. The method was the tap code, a grid of letters that prisoners communicated by knocking on walls and pipes. 5 rows, 5 columns, 25 letters. A knock pattern that became the nervous system of an underground community. Through the tap code, Stockdale issued orders, shared information, maintained morale, and, most critically, established a shared code of conduct that gave every prisoner a framework for how to behave under torture. The code was called BAC-US. Prisoners were not expected to resist indefinitely. They were expected to resist as long as they could, and when they broke, to give as little as possible, and then to return to the resistance without shame. No man was abandoned. No man was condemned for breaking. The community held. This is where Stoicism proved itself not as a philosophy for individual comfort but as a philosophy for collective survival. The insight that you cannot control what happens to you but you can control your response, that your inner life is the one territory that no external force can fully occupy, became, inside the Hanoi Hilton, the founding principle of an entire social order. Stockdale did not preach it. He lived it, in conditions that would have destroyed the preaching of any man who had not already made the philosophy his own. The prisoners watched him. They saw a man who had been tortured 15 times and did not break. They saw a man who had been beaten and starved and isolated and who maintained, through all of it, a quality of presence and leadership that had no explanation except the one he would have given: I decided, a long time ago, what was mine and what was not. They took that from me. But they could not touch what was actually mine. There is a concept that Stockdale described after his release that has entered the vocabulary of leadership and psychology under the name the Stockdale paradox. It emerged from a conversation with the writer Jim Collins, who asked him how he had survived when others had not. Stockdale's answer was precise and counterintuitive: the optimists did not make it. Collins was confused. How could optimism fail? Stockdale explained. The optimists were the ones who told themselves they would be out by Christmas. When Christmas came and went, they said Easter. When Easter came and went, they said Thanksgiving. And eventually, he said, they died of a broken heart. The optimists confused hope with prediction. They attached their survival to specific outcomes that the situation could not guarantee. When the outcomes failed to arrive, their hope collapsed with them. What worked was something different. It was the combination of unflinching honesty about the reality of the situation: this is terrible, this may last years, there is no guaranteed end, with an equally unflinching belief that the end would come, and that when it came, the experience would have meant something. This is not optimism. It is something harder and more durable. It is the refusal to lie to yourself about what is happening, combined with the refusal to surrender to what is happening. Epictetus would have recognized it immediately. It is the discipline of distinguishing what you can control from what you cannot, and putting your energy and your hope into the former while accepting, clearly and without sentimentality, the latter. Stockdale was released on February 12, 1973, after 7.5 years. He walked off the plane on a leg that had never healed properly, in a uniform that had been prepared for his return, into a country that had spent the years of his imprisonment tearing itself apart over the war that had put him there. He was 49 years old. He had missed his son's childhoods. He had been separated from his wife Sybil for nearly 8 years, a woman who had, during his imprisonment, organized the National League of Families of American Prisoners and Missing in Southeast Asia and become one of the most effective advocates for POW rights in the country. He had been tortured, starved, isolated, and broken and rebuilt more times than he could count. He walked off the plane and stood straight. He went on to serve as president of the Naval War College, to write and lecture extensively about Stoicism and its application to leadership and survival. He received the Medal of Honor, the highest military decoration in the United States, awarded for conspicuous gallantry above and beyond the call of duty. He spent the rest of his life trying to explain, to anyone who would listen, what he had learned in that prison, not about war, not about politics, not about Vietnam, but about the structure of a human being and what it takes to keep that structure intact when everything outside it is trying to destroy it. The philosophy that saved him was not new when he found it, and it is not new now. Epictetus wrote it in the 1st century. Marcus Aurelius applied it from the throne of the most powerful empire in the world. Stockdale applied it from the floor of a cell in North Vietnam. The circumstances change. The principle does not. You are not what happens to you. You are how you respond to what happens to you. You cannot control the prison. You can control what you do inside it. And the prison, in the end, is always inside, the walls built by the belief that what you cannot control is the same as what defines you. Stockdale spent 7.5 years proving that it is not. The proof cost him everything he had. He gave it anyway. And what he came back with was worth more than what he had left with, not because the suffering was good, but because the suffering revealed something that comfort never could. That the self, when you have stripped everything else away, is not fragile. It is, if you have built it correctly, the one thing that nothing can take.